Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're on the world. YouTube, you're very welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. Well, actually, here on YouTube. Paul, you were just explaining to
and
Kyle.
I'm explaining to our wonderful guest, person who's going to be our guest this week. I'm explaining to him what this podcast is like. So I'll just carry on because I started just before you tuned in. But just to say, 4 episodes every week, and the first one is that a good old quotation picked by one person, discussed by 2 people. Secondly, a word of the week chosen by one person, discussed by 2 people. And that's episode 1, 13 minutes, bang. Episode 2, which is we then have a messy interlude while we tell each other how awful we were and have fights and everything like that and say, all that kind of stuff. And the whole system goes down, but it is a bit messy, but it isn't broadcast to the outside world, except that we've started in the last 6 months or so to be transparent with people watching on YouTube. And we have thousands of people who now realize what the podcast, what goes on behind the scenes. Actually, they're usually all a tiny number. But the key thing, so look, the second episode, Kyle, is an interview with the guest. And that today will be Moira will interview you. And I'll say it, the general... everybody who's ever come on the show, from Deepak Menon to several world champions, to Dan Rex, to John Cock, district directors, advisors, everybody under the sun, including people who've just joined Toastmasters 2 weeks ago. We've had all sorts of people on, and it's always around the same core key questions. So in theory, somebody could go back and compare the last 300 guests we had. What answers do they each give to the same question? So that's the thinking. That's about 12, 13. We never tell the person what the questions are, but of course the people who are coming on as guests who have listened to the last 200 episodes of the show will know what's coming up. So the third one is then I pick a theme, a topic, and I do 12 or 13, 14 minutes on it. And it could be anything. It's often about leadership, management, but it could be about events that are coming up. It could be about, I pick a topic. And the fourth one is, the fourth one is a kind of new slot that we've had recently. Moira O'Brien used to be a fully fledged co-presenter, but when she decided that she would take a break, give her larynx a little rest, it left us with an episode which Ted and I decide what to do on the day. Now today, what we'd like to do, and this is what we're evolving into, is the first interview Moira will do with you. And then we'd like to record another interview with you, which will be a continuation really, but it'll be it'll become available on a different day.
Okay.
So that'll be the one in which I ask you to, the usual things, what's the worst thing you've ever done in your life? Tell me about last time you were in prison. Those kind of normal questions that our guests would have. No, but it's all very friendly stuff. It lasts for the last episode can be a bit longer than the other 3. Now, we can do them in that order, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you would like to get away, sooner rather than later, shall we say, because that's totally understandable, we can do Moira interviewing you. We'll do the first episode first, just to get ourselves warmed up. Then Moira would interview you. Then I can interview you.
Well, I do.
And you can leave. Or if you're happy to wait till number 4, then we'll do it in 1, 2, 3, 4, whichever. How are you for time?
How long do we need? I probably got to about 4 p.m. So maybe the best to do your fast approach, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I do have an episode 4 prepared, Paul, if need be. I have one up my sleeve.
Oh, well, no, we'll have a good little second bite of the cherry with Kyle. It would be, that would be too good an opportunity to miss, really.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Moira, in that case, so Kyle, for the first one, will you just sit back, relax, and listen to myself and Moira make a complete hames of it? And then we can get on to the really good stuff in episode 2.
Sounds good to me.
I won't mention the fact, Paul, that I only interviewed Kyle for my In Conversation series about 10 days ago, which I confess I haven't done anything with yet because I haven't had time. But there's a slight, what's the word? Anyway, the Tour de France started 6 days ago, and that is taking up a ridiculous amount of time.
Fair enough.
Well, I'm ready to go, Moira. No, can you give me a sound check? Is my voice okay?
Yep, you're coming over loud and clear. In fact, we're coming over quite well balanced. Okay, so let's go with you and I, and we'll hide Kyle off the screen, except that it's showing Ted and not.
Would it be better if I shut down my video? Would that help?
No, don't do that because that completely ruins everything.
All right, okay.
You see, I'm whoopsie daisy. I'm doing things on Streamlabs. Everything is controlled by Streamlabs, and that means that because it depends upon you being in a particular part of the screen. If you close your video, then you might disappear from the screen, and that would be completely mess up my. Come on, Moira, get it right.
This is what I mean by messing around in the background. It's like Winnie the Pooh, Kyle. It's messing around, and Moira has this dialogue with her software. And eventually she emerges and we start.
Oh, that's why. Okay, I'm locked. Okay, that does explain. I'm trying to get the names right because at the moment I was Ted for a wee while and I don't like being Ted, so it would be a good idea not to be Ted.
Just while Moira is carrying on that dialogue, Kyle, have Firebirds got in touch with you or not?
Yeah. John reached out to us all. Unfortunately, there's no dates in July that work for me. I believe it or not, between now and the, I think the 17th, I'm speaking in 14 different Toastmaster clubs. So, I can't get a date in July because of things just don't work out. But in August, there should be one.
Only 14?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, Paul, let's get going because time is marching.
I'm ready, Moira, for when you start.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that I don't have any more software issues. So let's see what happens. Let's also do a quick record to the cloud.
Peter Piper picked a pickleback purse. If Peter Piper picked a...
Recording in progress.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Hello, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends. You're very welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. My name is Moira O'Brien, and I am joined today by the perfidious... No, that's not a good one either. Pernickety. I like pernickety because that describes him to a T. The pernickety and persuasive and all-pervasive Paul Imani. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Paul.
Listeners, thank goodness you're here. If I felt I was stuck with Moira alone, I'd be in big trouble. But thanks a million for listening today. Well, I hope things get better and better.
That's good. Now, What do we have on show for you today? Well, first of all, let me tell you the usual thing about our email address, etc. You can contact us at info@irishtalkers.com. We're on Facebook as the Talk Show for Talkers. Our website is irishtalkers.com, and we also publish the Public Speaking Weekly, where you can find lots of information about Toastmasters, about confidence, leadership, and everything to do with public speaking. So have a look at that. It's worth an occasional look. It's a roundup of links from the internet. Right, we have our usual mix of a quote for the day and a word of the day. In part 2, we'll be interviewing a future world champion. In part 3, Paul is going to be talking, well, he's going to be giving you not a choice, but a question as to whether you're going to be attending your club officer training or, I hope, the International Convention. And in part 4, we'll be continuing the conversation with our guest. So that's the lineup for the week. Let's start off with the first part, which is our quote of the day. And I have to take a deep breath on this one. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. And that is by Samuel Beckett. I didn't actually know that this quote, fail better, actually came from Samuel Beckett, but let's give it again just in case you missed it. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. Paul, what does fail better mean to you?
Oh, you know when Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are sitting in the middle of the stage and they're tossing coins and they're trying to see how many times heads will come up. I suppose it could be fail better to toss a coin. No, I tell you what, Samuel Beckett, I'm surprised he used that sentence, but no doubt he gave it to a character. And that's what playwrights do, don't they? They lend words to a character. I doubt very much he put it in a letter of advice to his grandniece. The other possibility is that we have a quotation here today, listeners, which is the punchline is fail better. There are other punchlines you'll have heard, like fail faster or even fail more frequently. And they're nice things to hear, I suppose, because there are some people who beat themselves up when they, quote, fail at something. Beat yourself up, Moira?
Oh, frequently, Paul, but not for failing. I beat myself up for being too successful. You see,
yes, that took my breath away. That took my entire breath away. That is what I would call an innovative remark. I have never heard anybody saying, I beat myself up for being too successful. I am going to put that in a table topic at a Toastmasters club.
I think that'd be a very good idea.
Soon.
Now, being serious and being sensible, of course, I don't beat myself up for being successful, and I do have failures. I think the key message here is that if you don't try, you don't succeed. So if you try and you fail, then try again and again and again and again until you do succeed. So the key is to keep on trying. And the quote, fail better, to me just means, well, if you're going to fail, then do it positively. Try to get something out of it. Try to make your failure into something you can learn from and go on and do better next time. So that's my general view. But then, you know, Paul, I'm impervious to comments that come from your part of the world to me. So when I make statements like I did just now, it goes over my head.
Well, I tell you what, listeners, I better spell that that convoluted word Moira just used a minute ago, impervious. impervious, impervious. It's an adjective. What on earth does it mean to be impervious to how somebody else treats you? Does it mean you have a thick skin? It does. If you have a thick skin, you're impervious to criticism. In other words, criticism can't get at you. You can also be, and it is the word of the week, impervious to praise. In other words, you can be a person who doesn't let praise go to your head. There's a wonderful poem by Kipling called If, and somewhere in the poem, Kipling says something like, if you can not get carried away by all the praise people give you, and if you can hold yourself together when you're faced with a whole load of unpleasant criticism, that's the way to go forward. So to be impervious is not to be able to be penetrated by something. So you can go out and wear waterproofs which are impervious to the downpour. You can have a carpet which is impervious to bad treatment, can be recovered if you drop ink on it. You can clean it up and restore it to the way in which it was. So, and the key thing is, and this is the most relevant thing for Toastmasters. Now, you don't experience criticism at a Toastmasters meeting. It's one of the things a lot of newcomers find very hard to understand. Criticism is an absolutely no-no as a word to describe what happens. When people are evaluated in Toastmasters, it's very deliberately described as this is not criticism. Nobody likes to be criticized. So impervious is a handy word to say, I'm impervious to your praise, or I'm impervious to your criticism. Now, Moira, you know that I'm going to ask you, when do you think this word, impervious, when did it come into the English language first? Which century? Let's see if we can get one of these questions right for a change.
I would guess the 16th century.
Oh, wow. You're really, really close. You're within 5 centuries of the right answer. Really, really good. It's a 17th century word. A 17th century word. In fact, to be precise, in 1615.
Well, there you are. I got 16 right, didn't I? Just not...
Well, there you are. It just is it's been around for a long time. It's got a certain lusciousness about it, doesn't it? To be impervious. I think it's got a certain je ne sais quoi. What do you think? Would you ever use the word, Moira? Will you use it at your next Toastmasters meeting? Impervious.
I might well do. It is a very useful word. I'm impervious to criticism. I'm impervious to the heat. I'm impervious to Paul's snide remarks. I'm impervious to Ted Menamphy's exotic speech making. Nothing. I'm impervious to water off a duck's back. You see what I mean? I
do indeed. And that is a terrific example of speaking without integrity. I just think that was a fantastic example, listeners, of Moira telling porcupines, fibs, and whatever the other things are called. Anyway, you're impervious to criticism. That's the word of the week. And it's been a great pleasure to discuss it with you, Moira O'Brien.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's always good to extend your vocabulary. I used to be a very verbose person in my younger days because I used to read. I read not just avidly, I read consistently and regularly. In fact, every day I would read. I would get through at least one book a week. And in doing so, I reckon that I extended my vocabulary by hundreds of thousands, well, maybe not hundreds of thousands, but many, many thousands of words, because you learn as you read. Because once you read a word, and the word maybe is a word you don't know, but you can guess it from the context. And once you read it in context, you can then try using it in context. So something like impervious is certainly a word that is within my vocabulary. Well, that does bring us very nicely to the end of our first episode this week. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow, when we'll be introducing you to a young man who is definitely going places. Our guest this week is the winner of the District 71 International Speech Contest, Kyle Murtagh. We'll see you tomorrow.
Great. Lovely. Kyle, Moira cuts out all the long pauses while she tries to think who is she going to be talking to tomorrow, you know. So she cuts all those out so she sounds afterwards. And she does the same for me. And she'll do the same for you.
No, I don't do it for my guests. Our guests, I'm afraid, have to... you see, it's one of those strange things. If I did it for guests and made guests sound really good, because that's what I do, then I feel it would be a little bit like, what's the word? In my old age, my vocabulary has gone through the floor. It would not be being honest. Now, we're not being honest because you and I make us sound really good. Or at least I try.
Well, with that being said, let's get kicked off then. Let's dive in.
Wait a minute, I just have a little bit of back end work to do. Yeah. A few seconds, that's all.
Yeah.
Nothing much.
Well, by the way, I don't know if you know, the region results came out.
Yeah, that was how I was going to open the next segment.
Ah, right, okay.
Congratulating you.
Apologies.
I know nothing. You've suddenly had me paying more attention than I would have paid to anything else.
Okay.
I keep quiet during this next conversation, by the way, but I'll be having plenty of feelings behind the scenes.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Let's bring up the right, where are we doing interview? Okay. All right. Welcome, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends, to episode 2 of this week's Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. And as I indicated yesterday, I am delighted to introduce our... Sorry, I'm going to start again because I just had somebody coming in the door. And herself, who must not be named, was ringing in the background telling us that. So bear with me. Welcome back, Toastmasters. Now, of course, I make a complete and utter pig's breakfast of it. Can you hear background noise on my microphone when I'm speaking?
A little bit of buzzing.
My desk, my sound desk has gone noisy all of a sudden. Right, we'll start again. Welcome to episode 2 of the Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. As I mentioned at the end of the first episode, I'm delighted to welcome our very special guest this week, who is Kyle Murtagh, the winner of the District 71 International Speech Contest. And I understand, Kyle, that you have now gone forward from the quarterfinals to the semi-finals. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Moira. Yeah, got an email at 4 a.m. yesterday letting me know, and that was a good way to wake up, I'll tell you that. So yes, very excited about the next round, but it's not time to get carried away, is it? It's time to focus, because now it gets really serious.
Well, it's time now to start serious work, isn't it? Because
Well, I've already been doing a lot of that already, I have to say. But yes, stepping it up even more so. A lot more vigor to it, I guess.
indeed. Well, we'll save a lot of that conversation for episode 4 this week. But let me just brief you a little bit about what is going to happen for the next 10 or 12 minutes. I'm going to ask you basically 5 questions. Well, it may be 10 questions, but the 5 of those questions will be the same 5 questions that we ask all our guests. And our guests have ranged from international presidents and world champions of public speaking, right the way down to humble area directors, or even humbler, hopefully, new Toastmasters. Toastmasters who've only been in Toastmasters for a matter of weeks or months. So we cover the whole range. And the questions that we ask are the same, but the answers that we get are so varied that it is really fascinating hearing them. So let's dive straight in and ask you the very first question. And it's a very simple one. What brought you to Toastmasters in the first place?
2 things brought me to Toastmasters. So to give you a bit of background, my first ever speaking experience was in October 2016. I was at a place kind of similar to Toastmasters, but 1 year after, that's when I joined. And by that point, I'd overcome the nerves per se, or the initial nerves of, being terrified to speak. I got past that. And when I joined Toastmasters, there was 2 reasons in mind. Number one, to practice my skills. I wanted to really hone my skills because within that year prior, I kind of discovered that I really like this. I really like this speaking thing, and I want to try and get as good at it as possible. Second reason was I'd watched YouTube videos of world champions and what organization were they competing in? What was the competition held? Who was it held by? It was Toastmasters. So I definitely wanted to compete in the biggest public speaking competition. So those were the 2 reasons. Number one, to improve the skills. Secondly, to get into that competitive spirit.
Okay, well, that's as good a reason as any. What has been the greatest benefit of Toastmasters to you?
Stage time. I tell this to anyone who's interested in improving their speaking. Yes, it's fine reading or watching the skills, but you've actually got to do this to get better at it. And it's very hard to find stage time, in your work, in your career, in your personal life. Very rare we get those occasions. And then all of a sudden, you have to do a best man speech in front of 60 people. Go ahead. Best of luck, mate. So you don't get a lot of prep at all. But what Toastmasters does is it gives you that place where you can practice weekly. And that's what you need to do if you really want to get comfortable in this game. You need to be having that stage time, and that's what it's gave me. Multiple opportunities to present and different styles of speaking, prepared speeches, impromptu, evaluation, so many different facets, which helped me tremendously. So stage time for sure, Maura.
Well, you've picked up on one of my favorite quotes, and that came, I guess it's not exclusively from Craig Valentine, but one of the things that he loves to say is stage time, stage time, stage time. And then, of course, there is Darren LaCroix, whose organization is called Stage Time University. And I do totally agree with you. Every opportunity that there is to speak, take it, because every time you improve just a little bit. It may be only a tiny bit, but you do improve.
Yeah, and the reality is there's very little to lose, but a lot to gain by speaking in public. It's never as bad as you think. And the more time you're up there, the more comfortable it becomes.
And what was the biggest challenge that you've had in Toastmasters?
I think finding my style. So even though I'd been speaking for a year, I don't think I'd truly found what style of speaker I was, I wanted to be a funny speaker, but I wasn't really a funny speaker. I wanted to be an inspirational speaker, but I didn't quite know what I wanted to speak on. So I was sort of trying to figure out who I was as a speaker for the first, I would say, year or two, to be honest with you. It was only once I got into the 3rd year that I started to understand how I make speeches in Toastmasters and what type of messages come authentically from me. They say, the greatest form of praise is imitation. Perhaps I was imitating different speakers, legendary speakers, trying to just figure out if their style would work for me. And what I found is, eventually it becomes an amalgamation of all of those styles. And you start to learn, the more you're up there with the stage time, the more feedback that you get, you start to learn who you are. So that was my biggest challenge, figuring that out. And it only happens with time, I think.
Yes, I think I agree. For me, the best thing, the biggest challenge, should I say, was more probably on the leadership style, the leadership side of Toastmasters, which really I didn't realize that when I joined Toastmasters there was anything like a leadership path within Toastmasters. And I know that
it kind of catches you off guard, that one, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did. It did. In some ways, I regret that we don't put more emphasis on the leadership aspects in Pathways, but it's still there. It's just a little bit more hidden, maybe. Now, we know that there's been a lot of changes within Toastmasters over the past few years, but are there things that you would still like to change? And if so, what are they?
In Toastmasters, I think the format, I really think the format is fantastic. It's been proven around the world that it works. But do we need to do it like that every single meeting? I really think clubs would benefit from having different styles of meeting. Maybe having an improv comedy night, for example, maybe having a debate or persuasive speaking night, throwing in different styles, different angles to test members, I think would be beneficial. And the other thing I see lacking a lot is educationals, especially for new members. When a new member comes along, they have no idea how to evaluate. Yet we assign them on a website and then we throw them out there and they don't know what they're doing. They need guidance. Same with table topics, same with speeches. I feel we need to do more to support new people coming in and also people who have been there a long time, because very few of us get training in Toastmasters around our speaking. It's great that we've got a place to practice, but if we're practicing all the time without any direction, it's going to be hard to make a lot of progress, I feel.
I so agree with you. I've recently joined an online club called Online Orators, and they do not have ordinary meetings. I've been to 5 or 6 of their meetings so far, and each one has been completely different, and none of them have anything to do with the standard of prepared speeches, impromptu speaking, and evaluations. It's completely different. And I agree with you. I wish there were more clubs did that. Don't get me wrong. I think there is a definite place for the standard Toastmasters meeting as we all know it. But I agree that we should be mixing it up with different types of night, because it gives you different experiences and different opportunities to shine.
Yeah. And the reality is, how often in the real world are we asked to speak for 7 minutes? No one's going to pay you for a 7-minute speech. No. And you always have longer. It's always 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to do the meeting, or even shorter, 1 minute in an elevator. So, I think we need to it's great, the format. It obviously works, but I think you can sprinkle some variety on there, right? Just to mix things up.
I agree. What keeps you coming back to Toastmasters?
Those 2 initial reasons I joined. To improve, because I feel I still am with the feedback I receive and so forth, and the way I push myself in the meetings, and I try different things. And then secondly, the competitions, right? I have that goal of becoming world champion. That is a big driver for me. And I think the contests are just so good because they push you to be at your best. Your growth is exponential once you start entering the contests seriously, and there's a difference there. There's a enter the contest. Oh, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm taking part. And then there's entering to win. And when you enter to win, that's when you really push yourself and you make those gains, I feel.
That's a very interesting point. That's a very good point. I think many people, myself included, have in the past entered contest just to enter the contest. Just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And knowing that, we're going to improve a little bit because it's stage time.
Yeah.
But entering to win and getting a speech that you know is good enough to take you, God willing, up the ladder, that is a whole different ball game.
Yes, it's a different approach altogether. Now, listen, there's nothing wrong with entering to enter. That's great. In fact, that is a huge step for some people.
Yes.
And that's fantastic. They're making progress. But once you get to that stage where you're entering to win, then that's when you start doing the extra work in the background. You start practicing your speech in other places. You start to truly understand what it takes to progress up the ladder in these contests.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that brings us neatly to the end of this episode. I'll invite you to come back tomorrow when Paul is going to be talking about two very important things that are happening in the very near future. One is club officer training, and the other is the International Convention, not speech. Though, of course, there are important speaking things happening at the International Convention, and we'll be hearing a bit more about that from Kyle, maybe in episode 4. So come back tomorrow at the same time. See you then. Okay, let's do the necessary on that. How do you feel?
Thank you, guys. Lovely stuff.
Are you happy with that, Kyle?
Yeah, that was good. I was trying to think how I could put in impervious in, but the questions didn't quite come up there.
No,
But it's a good word. I like it.
It is.
I like it.
It is. Okay, and that. As usual, I didn't do enough of my background stuff that I'm supposed to do. It's impossible. It's impossible to do the production on this show and speak coherently and intelligently and follow what's being said at the same time. It's impossible. So YouTube has to put up with me leaving the wrong people on screen at the time. Okay, so we'll go straight in then, as we are getting on in time, to episode 4. And I will be handing over to Paul to grill Kyle. And I might even join in now and then. Are you ready, Paul?
Yeah, I just want to say I don't grill, I bake.
Right, how can I bring that into the introduction, I wonder? Okay. Welcome, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends, to part 4, episode 4 of this week's Talk Show for Talkers. And I'm delighted to welcome back our guest of the week, Mr. Kyle Murtagh. And I'm going to hand you over now to Paul O'Mahony, because Paul has a few questions he wants to put to Kyle. And I know there's a lot that we'd like to know more about his journey in the International Speech Contest. So, Paul, the stage is yours for the moment.
Thank you very much. Kyle, it's a pleasure to have your company. I just wish we were sitting on the banks of the Clyde. For those who don't know Kyle, he's Scottish, but I'd like to know a little bit more about you. It's not so much that I want to know, but on behalf of the listeners, I'd like people in the next 10, 12 minutes to get to know you a lot better. So can you tell me, where were you born? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? And why did you study psychology and human resource management at university? Just a starter question.
Yeah, I'll try and reply as quickly as you asked. Aberdeen, went to Glasgow, studied psychology because I didn't know what I was going to do, ended up here. How's that?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I know that you consider the education you had in human resource management to help you, to help other people in groups who want to become better communicators. Have I interpreted that biography accurately?
Decently enough, yeah. It was certainly useful being at university, not even just for the studying or the learning, but just the taking out of what I knew, my norm. And my norm at that time was Aberdeen, that's where I grew up. I lived with my parents, but just to step out of that and all of a sudden you have to be responsible for making your own food, for example, something so small, of socializing, of making new friends. Like all of these things help tremendously. And of course, the studying of psychology and learning a little bit more about how we manage people in organizations was interesting. It was interesting, but ultimately, it wasn't what I foresaw myself doing. In fact, when I heard that to be a psychologist, you have to do 8 years in total of studying. I thought it was just 4, Paul, when I went in. They didn't tell me about the other 4. That was a bit of a shock there. So I decided not to continue that because academics it's not me, to be honest with you. It's something I've always struggled with. I pushed through, but it was never something I wanted to extend more than I had to.
And when you were at secondary school and later at university, were you a member of the debating society as a matter of interest?
No, wasn't in the debating society. Didn't do any speaking actually until I was, I would say, 20 years old. So when I was at universities, when I did my first bit of speaking, I was very quiet when I was in school, Paul. Honestly, if you spoke to people who were in my class and you told them that I do public speaking and so forth, they'd probably say to you, I didn't know Kyle could speak. That was the sort of vibe I had back then. I was very shy, very insecure for a multitude of reasons, right? Yes, I had...
We won't go into why, because, On the Psychiatrist's Chair with Anthony Clare is a better program. So when you get a chance, you can go on that.
I appreciate that cut off there. Fair enough.
I do want to know, have you ever been to elocution classes?
No, I haven't had the pleasure.
So I'm trying to get a little bit under you. Did you talk a lot to your mother and father when you were young, or did you talk to your teddy bear? Which did you talk to most?
Probably the teddy bear. I would say, Paul. I had a nice cat, a ginger cat. I called him Dylan, and Dylan was my best friend for a while. What's your cat's name?
My cat's name is Puma.
Puma. Wow. Original.
Oh. Have you ever been doing a speech at a Toastmasters club and your cat comes in and starts scratching your leg while you're on stage and you're in the middle of trying to concentrate? Have you ever had that happen to you?
No, I should probably say it was a stuffed animal. Dylan was a stuffed animal. He wasn't a real cat. But I can imagine that would be problematic in a speech.
Look, one of the first time I ever saw you on stage was in Cork in the spring of 2018.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you didn't get to buy me a pint after you came off stage, but the day will come. But that was where I saw you. And I thought, wow, this guy is taller than anyone would think.
Yeah, I'm 6'2". And I often wonder that, do people think I'm really small when I'm on camera? That tends to be the general.
You're 5'6", absolutely, no question. You're going to have to prove to me that you're 6'2". But anyway, look, did you play basketball at school?
No, football was my sport. I loved football when I was at school. Played that like 5 days a week, honestly.
There's something else I've got to find out about you, because many of the listeners don't realize that you're not just a talker. We all know you're a fluent, talented communicator face to face. But a lot of people, I reckon, don't know that you're able to write. Now, when did you become able to write?
It's a really good question. And I'm not sure. I think when I started this business, because I needed to write. I needed to write posts. I needed to write content. to get people interested. I needed to write my website. So that's when I sort of began. And then when the book came along, the idea for that, I think that's really when I started to begin to really like it. Because writing really is good fun. It's a different medium of communication. But I feel in some ways you can be so creative, like you delve deeper into the creativity of words. I know you had a word of the episode, and it's stuff like that. You know, when you're writing a book or something you truly care about, you start looking into different words and how that could fit in there and what that could do and what emotion that could evoke. So I think the book was truly what lit the fire with the writing, I would say.
I better tell the listeners that Kyle's book, which is available in both in text and in Audible, he has recorded the whole thing, and I've listened to it all twice. It's a book called The 5 Pillars of Effective Public Speaking. Now, Kyle, we won't have time today to go through each of the 5 pillars, but just to say that the front of the Parthenon has nothing on your book. The other thing I'm intrigued about, though, is that you, when you're communicating yourself, you're elevating your brand, you make a point of getting advantage out of the fact that you are about 20 years younger than all the other 1,725 people who've published books on how to do public speaking in the month of May. So tell me, where did you get that spark of insight to realize that you must turn what some would regard as a weakness into a strength?
Yeah. It's what else can you do? Yeah. Most people who are doing what I do are 20 years older than me, do have a lot more experience, potentially more accolades as well. So you've just got to try and flip that. Whatever you've got to try and flip it and turn it into a positive. And the reality is, me being young makes me distinct. You know, it makes me stand out. So yes, I promote that. I push that whenever I can.
Help it to grow in the future. Looks more like you than looks like me, because you have longevity on your side. Do you see that as a real advantage that you can contribute to Toastmasters, or is it just something you're going to keep for your business?
Potentially. I mean, there's lots of different ways to look at that. You could say, because I'm young, they probably don't want me to, achieve a certain status because I seem too young to be champion per se. So there's lots of ways you can look at it. Haven't thought about it to a great degree, but I would disagree, Paul. When you've got a shirt like that you're wearing, you are the brand ambassador for Toastmasters. Come on, let's be serious.
Have I told you about my Scottish background?
You have not.
The shirt has surely got some effort to show my solidarity with Scotland, despite all the ups and downs. But tell me, in terms of the number of people that you know in Toastmasters, would you say you know enough people, or are you keen to meet more people? Where are you in terms of your networking now?
Well, what I've been doing for the last, really since November last year, is I've been doing world tours while we've been online and practicing and so forth. So I have met a lot of people, but I'm always open to meeting more. I think networking, there's so much gold, there's so much you can gain, not just in terms of opportunities, but in terms of helping others, making connections, of maybe building friendships. So I'm always open to meeting more people, Paul. Absolutely. I don't think you should cap the number. I think you should be careful about who you have in your close circle, but making connections, why not?
And you are, and I'm thrilled that this has happened, I don't mind admitting, you're from District 71. You are our District 71 speech champion. Tell me, are you going, and now you're through to the semi-final, and you got to the semi-final because a group of judges watched your video of how you did in the District 71 final and watched it alongside all the other videos of people who had won their district final in Region 10. That's how I understand it is. So you're now the Region 10 international speech champion, which is phenomenal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But what I want to ask you is, are you going to do any practice before the semi-final? Surely you need to do a bit of more practice. Surely you're not going to just sit back and go fly fishing between now and the next round. Are you going to go anywhere to practice?
Fly fishing does sound good, Paul, but you know the answer to that already. Yes, I'm going to be doing a lot of practices. Since actually the district contest and today's date, which is probably, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks or however it's been, I've been around about 20 different clubs practicing my speech. I'll do another probably 30 before we get to the semi-final. So yes, there'll be a lot of practice, a lot of feedback coming my way. I will be ready.
Well, that's enough. I don't want to hear any more other than that you're ready. That's the brilliant thing. Kyle Murtagh, District 71, Speech Champion of the Year, 2020, 2021. I hope you win, by the way.
Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate that. Really do.
Well done, Paul. And on that very optimistic and positive note, let's bring this week's series of episodes to a close. Thank you all for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the shows, and you'll join us again at the same time on Friday next week, when we'll be bringing you a few more. By the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show that this is our first show of season 8. Our 8th year. That's amazing. So, join us again for another successful year. We'll see you then. Oh, and before we do go, many thanks to our special guest, Kyle Murtagh, and thanks to Paul Amani for taking some of the load from my back. Bye.
Thank you for listening.
That was a load.
Great.
Thank
you, Kyle. Rubbish. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Really enjoyed that, Paul. I love your cutting interview style. I like it.
Is that the word? As a matter of fact, you know how when you do something yourself and it's your way? Well, I don't have a word. If somebody said to me, Paul, what do you think? How would you describe your interview style? So give me another 1 or 2 words. What? Cutting?
Oh, to describe your style?
Yeah. What is my style?
Cutting, fast-paced. I would say not serious, if you will. Quite
jocular.
There's like an element of sarcasm, melted in there with a wry smile, if you know what I mean. Like you're being sarcastic to me, but I like it.
Sarcasm. There's always a victim. So whatever it is, I don't think the word sarcasm is the correct word. There must be another word, because the definition of sarcasm, certainly the one I like best, is that there is always a victim. So there's another tweak on, I don't know what the word is, but I just love talking to you, and I love actually talking to people, but I don't know.
Let's face it, Paul, you just love talking. That's not a criticism. I love talking too.
It seems like a while ago, though, Paul, when we met. I don't know if you remember. It was in the before the evaluation contest, 2020. And you were like prepping us all with our backgrounds and stuff. Seems like a long time ago.
Oh, I remember it vividly, because I've been in that kind of a room with people who were about to go on stage. Isn't that what it was? I was the sergeant at arms. But I've been in a number of those rooms, and I've been in some of them have horrified me. It isn't for me to judge the effect it has on the speakers, but I've seen some speakers and I've said to myself, oh my God, that person must be getting more and more nervous by the atmosphere that's being created in this room.
Yeah.
And so I remembered, well, you were last, I think, or second last to leave the room.
Yeah.
And, or I think you were, maybe you were second last. But the key thing is that I thought, look, if people are happy to relax before going out, and if they don't, they can just keep quiet. But yeah, I remember it well, and we've had so many times since then that all of which I've loved. So I'm thrilled. I'm utterly thrilled. I did not know until Moira hinted and spoiled the surprise by more or less announcing it immediately. But that's fantastic news. Does that mean? I guess that means there's only one person from Region 10. Then I guess.
No, there's two. So the other winner, I don't know him, but he's in Portugal and Spain. He's in that district. He got through too. Okay. So it's the top two. There was 8 in total, including Ben, of course, and top 2 get through. Now with the semi-finals, it's the last 28, and 7 in each semi-final. Top 2 get through to the final. Mm-hmm. So the path is there.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. Okay.
But look, do you have to go, Kyle? Because I'm very conscious of your time.
I need to get heading off by a quarter past. So I better head off. But thank you for the interview today. Really appreciate that. When is it getting published?
Your interview, part 2 will go out on Saturday. It's officially published at 4:00 on Saturday. Part 4 will go out on Monday.
So Saturday and Monday, yeah.
Excellent. Well, just let me know when it's out there. Maybe send me a link, and I'll share it or whatever I can do.
I'll try and remember to do that, Kyle. I'll bung it to you via WhatsApp.
Just log into irishtalkers.com. All our episodes are up on that webpage.
Okay. Great. All right, I'll shoot off. But thanks for today, guys.
Thanks.
Take care, and we'll speak again.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a million.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a million. Cheers. Bye. God, that's great news, Moira. That is great news.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I've got to, because there's only the
last person from District 71 who got to the World Semis. Did Vinette get to the semis?
Don't know. I think so. I don't remember. And I certainly watched. I watched the semis that year. So I think maybe she did. No, can't remember. No, wait a minute. No.
I can't. I don't know.
Was 3 years ago?
Vinette was 16, wasn't she?
2016.
Or was she? No, I'm not even sure.
No,
so basically,
I don't think I did watch that year. Yeah.
Wait a minute. 2018, the speech winner in Cork wasn't Vinette. Who was it?
In Cork? You mean in... sorry. Yeah, in the Cork...
Conference,
yes.
Vinette didn't win that year.
No. So
it must have been
17.
Which would have been in what? Was that the conference in Limerick or in Dublin, or where was that conference?
It was the UK. 17 was Sheffield, I think.
Where was it?
Sheffield, I think.
No, Sheffield was in Dublin. The winter. Sheffield was the autumn or winter conference.
Dublin?
Yeah, I think it must have been Dublin. Anyway, okay. Yeah. Well, it's good anyway. And that's now public knowledge, or, you know, I presume...
Yes. Must be.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's press on. I'll bring you in, and it's over to you to complete the circle.
Yeah, just give me 1 minute then, Moira, till I get my act together.
Okay.
In relation to this. It will be Brendan.
Oh dear. Oh, beg pardon. Not a good thing to do online.
I am looking for, and oh, there it is, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to, So whenever you're ready, Moira.
You're ready. Okay. Welcome, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends, to part 3, episode 3 of this week's talk show for talkers here on irishtalkers.com. Just a quick reminder that our email address is info@irishtalkers.com. Our website, of course, is irishtalkers.com, and you can find us on Facebook as the Talk Show for Talkers. It's that time where I hand the reins over to Paul Omani. And Paul, this week is looking at club officer training and the Toastmasters International Convention, and is asking the question, are you going? Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Moira. Thank you, listeners. There are 2 big events coming up at the start of this new Toastmasters year. And the first one of these that many of you will be invited to is training, because many of our listeners are club officers. And all of you who are club officers in District 71 have already been invited for club officer training on the 10th of July. It'll be online via Zoom, and it'll start off at 9:30 in the morning, and it'll finish by 3 o'clock. And you've had an email about that, and there are going to be some new developments covered during training this year. Let me take you through the agenda in case you've misplaced the email or decided you wouldn't read it until the 9th of July. There will, of course, be a welcoming address by the district director, Daniel Sanders, who undoubtedly will deliver a message which will include the vision for District 71 in the coming year. By the way, we hope to have Daniel as a guest on the Talk Show for Talkers in the foreseeable future. The Distinguished Club Programme. Absolutely important for club officers to be aware of this, to know how it works, to be introduced to it. Moments of Truth, really important way of a group of club officers considering how can we improve our club. A club success plan, the dashboard, marketing the club, creating a club vision, quality meetings, engagement with members, education program, pathways, building a healthy team. There are a terrific number of topics on the agenda for that day. Are you going to go? Is every member of your club's committee going to go? By the way, this particular one on the 10th of July, I believe, will be open to all members and for members from all around the world. It's not exclusively for District 71, and guests are very welcome to come to it. I'll be there. Maura O'Brien will be there, perhaps, but there'll be lots of other opportunities for club officer training. But there you are, 10th of July. That's what's on the agenda. Great inspiration, hopefully. Great engagement, great opportunity to invest in your own development as a leader in the club. Are you going to be there? And are you going to go to the International Convention? Now, they're the two ends of Toastmasters. On one level, you have the club. And on the other level, in the whole organization, you have the International Convention, which is going to be held on the 23rd of August, I believe it is. It's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So it's 6 days. It'll again be all online. And there are a tremendous number of sessions at which you can listen to people and make notes and educate yourself, really, on all things to do with communicating and influencing or leading other people. You can tune in online on the Monday, which is the opening. Tuesday is the semi-final of the World Speech contests, a whole load of competitions or groups, semi-final heats for you to watch. There will then be business meetings during the week. There will be poetry and song, sing-song, in other words. But above all, what I would say is there's going to be a great opportunity for a bit of networking. If any of you have ever gone to any kind of a conference in Toastmasters, you'll have met people whose company you liked. This year, because you're used to it by now, you'll be meeting people online. You'll be able to chat with them. You'll be able to swap email addresses, phone numbers. You'll be able to connect. And you'll also be able to encourage people to come to your club from other countries. So it's a really rich program. There are streams, 4 main streams, all to do with communication, all to do with influencing, just powerful stuff. Will you be there? Have you ever gone to an international convention online? If you haven't, you're very fortunate, because the first one is always memorable. You will never forget your first international convention, will you? No matter what it's like, you're never going to forget it. So that's why I say that you're fortunate if this is the first one. If you've been to 20 international conventions, well, terrific. You're unlikely to want to miss any. If you've already got 20, you undoubtedly want to go to the 21st. Moira, will you go to club officer training in the first place? Are you a club officer, and will you be getting yourself trained this year?
I am a club officer. I'm treasurer of Blarney Toastmasters, and I firmly believe that all officers should attend club officer training. I think it almost should be made mandatory that officers attend club officer training. I have certainly attended every year that I have been a club officer, and I think I've been a club officer every year since my second year, or maybe, yeah, about that. I think it's essential. How can anybody fulfill a club officer role without learning what the role encompasses?
Yes, because the training will, and I perhaps could have mentioned this, the training will include a session specifically about the role you're going to play in the club on the committee. So if you're going to be a club secretary, you'll go to a session specially designed for club secretaries. If you're going to be a vice president for education, you'll mix with other vice presidents for education. And that's a great place to build up some useful contacts, because some of the people in the room with you while you're on your role-specific training will be generous enough to offer to help you into your role. And in the same room will be some total novices, never did the role before, willing to step up, willing to give of their time and effort, and willing to educate themselves on how to do the role, stepping in the shoes of somebody who's done it last year. But there, you can get help from anybody in any club in the world. You're not confined to the one person that you're able to get advice from, the person in your own club. No, terrific opportunity. So, yeah. And what about the International Convention, Moira? Have you an interest in it this year?
I attended the International Convention last year. Well, certainly all the speech contest ones. I missed I think most of the other bits, not intentionally, just it's the way that it happened. Yes, I intend to go. I certainly will watch the international speech contests. Definitely the finals, maybe some of the semi-finals as well. I'd love to be supporting our own entry, Carl Murta. Whether I attend any of the workshops, that will depend on the workshops themselves. And whether I do any networking, well, yeah, I will definitely do some networking, because that's half of the enjoyment of going to any convention, any international meeting, is to network and make new friends. And
Luann Kent used to be the district director in District 71 back around 2014 or something like that. And I'll never forget being in a group where she was asked, and others were asked, what do you most like about going to conferences, actually it was about, but international convention as well. And she said the most surprising thing, because most of us would say, oh, yes, the speech contest, very good. Oh, yes, the workshops. Oh, yes, this, that. But what did Luann Kent say? Luann Kent said, I really love the business meeting, the AGM. And I remember, I thought, I was shocked. It was real shock and awe. I thought, oh, no, how can you possibly regard that? I wouldn't have said this out loud. How boring. How nerdy. Oh, my goodness. You must be a very uninteresting person. I didn't voice any of that because I would have been a real fool. But it's truth. I was totally puzzled. I said, how can you? And the funny thing is, 3 or 4 years later, I'm in the same boat as Luann Kent. I myself am utterly fascinated by how you put on the annual general meeting, which has to be run very, very carefully according to certain rules and procedures. Mm. It's what you have to do in business when you're holding an annual general meeting of a public PLC or any kind of company. There are rules, and you have to learn how to do it, and then you have to watch the items on the agenda, how long they're going to last. Is there going to be any drama? Is there going to be any suspension of standing orders? Is there going to be any points of information? Is there going to be any debate from the floor? How is the chair going to handle it? Are there going to be any adjournments? And I thought, oh my goodness, this is actually really quite exciting stuff. And are there going to be any votes? And just when you think that all the votes are sewn up, wasn't it last year's convention or the year before? I think it was last year, where the International Board recommended 2 motions for the whole organization in the world, and neither of them got accepted.
That's true. That's true.
And it's wonderful example that you think, oh, yeah, well, that's an obvious thing. Yeah. Okay, they wouldn't be putting it up for a vote unless it's all already stitched up. And no. Yeah. And the drama. So if Luann Kent should ever listen to this episode, and if anybody should ever meet her, would you please tell her that Paul O'Mahony in Cork is contrite and ever so relieved he didn't open his mouth when Luann Kent told me what she was most interested in. I am definitely going to the International Convention.
On that note, we'll bring this episode to a close, and we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time, when Paul will be grilling Kyle Murta a little bit more. We'll see you then.
Oh, no, I won't. The most I'll do is bake, Kyle Murta.
Yeah, I had already stopped recording because we're way over time, of course.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. Yeah,
well,
okay.
You were
no
not
problem.
paying attention to my rude messages.
Yeah, I know.
It's only 2.5 minutes, so we'll live with that.
It's bad, though. Yeah.
Well, I'll knock a minute out anyway, as I always do.
Yeah.
Right. So
hey, that was lovely, Moira. I think we did fine.
Yep, that's good.
Lovely guy. Lovely interview you did. Great stuff.
Let us say goodbye to YouTube. we'll see you again at the same time.